Yep.
Okay.
Cloud. Yep.
All set,
All
sir.
right, good evening. This is Town of Dayton's a joint meeting with the Finance Committee for the budget reviews. Today is Tuesday, March 11, 2025. We're at Old Town Hall, 1111 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass. 02715. Can we please have a roll call, please?
Nicole Mello present.
Mark Pacheco present.
And Peter Karen present. You guys want to open your meeting?
Sure. Finance Committee, we have nobody on Zoom, so we don't need to do a roll call.
Oh, you have everybody's here, right? Okay. Can everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, who's first?
The Finance Committee.
Finance Committee.
We've got two transfer requests. Does everybody have a copy? The first one, I actually talked to Tom about this back in January. Center pins on the loader broke. Wasn't sure how he was going to be able to fix it. I asked him to talk to Serena, but that we'd be willing to talk about the transfer from the reserve for this because it certainly is unforeseen. Anybody have any questions on it?
So this is a minor repair to a major piece of equipment, or a major
I
repair
would say a big repair, right?
It's a major.
to a major piece of equipment.
Go to the podium.
Yeah.
Don't let people speak from the audience. They can't hear them. So.
What is this machine used for? Tom?
It's a front end loader.
Yep.
Does all the loading for sand dunes in the winter time and also in the summer, the dump truck for the construction sites.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for Tom?
One more question. We fixed the pin in this.
Two, yes.
Two
Is
pins.
an upper and a lower, yes.
Okay. Life on the machine then is expected multiple years.
Yes, multiple years.
Thank
You
you.
might be doing that same machine again 5 or 6 years down the road. Yep.
Takes a lot of abuse, huh?
It does, yes.
I make the motion. We vote to transfer the amount necessary, $14,800, to particular supplies, account 010-0-422-00000-70-5480.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Guys have it. Thank you, Tom. We have a second request for $1,000 to assist the ADA assistant to ADA COD.
I have a question.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this, so.
Mr. Chairman, I'm here. Do you want me to address that?
Sure.
Okay, this is Dr. Gale, the ADA coordinator. What this is from was a mistake or an oversight, and this is to correct that. As you all may know, I am totally blind, and I'm saying it for those who don't know, who may be new to the committee. And therefore, I have, as the ADA coordinator, I have a person who assists me with things that I cannot see visually. A lot of that could be reading documents, reading things online that are not accessible or can be transferred to accessible format. Things like that, reviewing state federal regulations, etc. Normally, that person is budgeted $1,500 per year to provide me support, which roughly the $1,500 is based on approximately $150 per month, and this person is paid $16 per hour, period. That's it. There's no overtime, there's no other figures. When I sat down with Serena and the prior town administrator last year, we discussed the $1,500. We all agreed that the $1,500 figure would carry forward again, as it always has. Somehow, in the line items last year, and I didn't look at it again, so I was remiss, and I was remiss because I expected it to be part of the town administrator's budget last year, since that's what we agreed prior to last year, the budget for what I did went through the ADA commission. Now it's running through the town administrator. So because we agreed, I did not take another look at it. Apparently, when the budget went through and was approved for everything, I think it was for $450 as opposed to the $1,500. So Rita and I recently talked about this. She agrees it was supposed to have been $1,500, but there was no explanation as to how it ended up at $450. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I can't do some of the work that I do without this person. So this is the transfer, this is to ask for the transfer for the money that we expected to be available so that I can continue to do the work that I do on a monthly basis.
And just for a point of clarification, if you had the $1,500 as appropriated, there would be no need for additional funding because you had looks like it was $450 plus $1,000, which would have been under the $1,500, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Is there any question I have? Gina, this is still in administrator's budget?
So the way the budget is for fiscal year '25, Jonathan Gale's salary is in 124, and then his assistant Justina is in Department 549. So this transfer would go into Department 549 for this current fiscal year.
And where's this money coming from?
Your finance reserve.
Yeah, so there's no line item for 25 budget voted, right? Okay.
There should be money.
Just to be clear, for the next year's fiscal budget, there should be that $1,500 for the future year. This is for the current year. So it's, I don't know what you're looking at specifically, but next year is not a zero. Next year is also the $1,500.
Yeah, for 26, correct, but I'm just
Yes,
saying it
correct.
wasn't under 25.
That's correct.
Right. Only 450.
What is this? 50,000 cleans and drains. Oh, this is for 26.
Yeah, correct.
I don't have
Yeah.
25. Okay, I got you. You got 25?
25 is the third column.
So it's just a missing item. Any other questions?
Anybody else? Actually, Serena, do you have the balance in the reserve?
Before this transfer will be 28,200.
28,200.
So we'll be down to 27,200
Yes.
with this. Yeah, I'll make a motion to transfer the amount requested of $1,000 to the aforementioned ADA professional and technical account, and transfer those funds from the reserve fund.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. I do have one question before I was going to change my vote, that's why I held off. It says present balance and appropriation is zero.
We've expended the 450 already that was budgeted.
As of today, not as of January 13th.
It was as of January.
As of January, it was zero. So, but for like December 31st, there was still, granted, it was about 10 hours.
Sometimes their bills, when they submit, it's 2 months together. It's not regularly monthly.
Okay.
We generally bill out for Justina and myself because the figures are so low and it's time consuming every 2 months.
Okay.
And then Peter, I just have the originals for you to sign.
Oh. So you don't want these?
Stickler.
That is, that's all that we have for transfer requests. We'll send it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Then we're moving right on. Want to go with the overview, Ralph?
Yes. Thank you for allowing me to give an overview of the budget for fiscal year 2026. I want you to know, as you go through the budget, I made a request to the department heads to do the best they can to reduce their budgets. I asked highway, police, and fire to reduce it $50,000, and to the rest 2.5%. With that being said, the budget is slightly higher than last year's budget. Who's going to come before you? The department budget is approximately $8,970,497, which represents an increase of 1.4% over the previous year budgets. From just to put that in perspective, from fiscal year 24 to 25, the same budget for the departments, there was an increase of 2.46%. I went through and I made some additional cuts, as you would see in the town administrator's budget. That budget came out to $8,913,855, which represents an increase of 0.8% over the previous year's budget. Again, I want to thank my team. It was a very difficult budget season. They've made tough decisions, and I respect them all for that. My recommendations to the budget I presented, it includes, just so you know, reductions to contributions to the stabilization in OPEB. We are making contributions, but not as much as we made in the past. We're using free cash to balance the budget. There's really, for all intents and purposes, no capital investments, and I do make a recommendation in my budget to reduce boards and committee stipends by 50%. We instituted a one sheet, and that's what you could see. First, just to make it a little easier for you to see, with the department budget, we have an excess levy capacity. It's very slim, of about $3,800. And with my proposed changes, it's about $60,000. So just to put that in perspective, as you all know, the biggest strain on our budget is the debt we have to pay within 2.5. This year, we're projecting that to be $721,566. For fiscal year 27, it's going to be approximately $870,000. And fiscal year 28, which I'm making the assumption that it will be, the bonds will be in place. Right now, BP is in bands. The bonds will be in place, so it'll be $1.2 million. I don't have to tell you, but that's going to be unsustainable for us without making dramatic cuts to personnel and service. So I hope if you have any questions regarding it, I'm here to answer it, but we could proceed as you wish.
Ralph, in the years that I've been on the finance committee, we've never started with the assumption that we're going to be using free cash, and we've actually only used it once.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, my preference, I certainly don't want to.
It's not, I agree, it's not the best practice, but it's what we have. If we don't, I'm using approximately $471,000 in free cash. I don't know where we're going to get $470,000 in cuts without any dramatic reduction in service and personnel.
Yeah, that was my question. I know that, I think you guys had met after the prop failed a bit. Mm-hmm. Did you guys have recommendations around, this process?
To raise the fund?
Not necessarily raise the funds, but really where we were going to get it from. Because I know we have only a limited control over the educational side of the budget.
Sure. We've asked major cuts from the departments. We have, as selectmen, met with the town administrator. there were a lot of recommendations, everything from taking away stipends completely, which I think kind of failed just because of different reasons, as you probably are aware. But I think from the beginning, it was under the assumption that we were going to have to use free cash. There was just no cuts possible that we could make without drastically reducing. You cut one employee and you're going to save $50,000-$60,000. So can you imagine how many employees we would have to cut, and where would those cuts come from? Which employees, which departments? The biggest budgets that we have, obviously, is the school, which we're limited with, the highway, police, and fire. I think Ralph had asked them both to make major cuts, but then they did. It's just a question of where else would it come from, and we have no ideas at this time. We don't like using free cash as well. This is going the same trend that we had last year, and I hate to start off with the assumption that we're going to use it, which is I think what you're talking about here. It's difficult to swallow, but we had no firm ideas. This is where it was going to come from. We asked the school to come in under, but not under budget, but under what they had originally proposed, and I think we're going with the assumption that they're going to come in at that lower mark. And if they do, we will still have to use free cash, but just not as much.
When I was looking through, you had said that you had asked police, fire, highway, $50K each was the goal?
Yes, yeah.
So that's 150, and then other departments at 250. My question is...
So the goal was to get it down by 200,000, but again, that... There are...
It's just Jonathan.
Okay.
I'll go on mute, I'm sorry.
You know, the reality is there are some fixed costs even in the departments that...
That was my question,
Yeah,
was a lot of
so-
these are contracted
Right.
with salaries and overtime, and so that I just wasn't sure if there was like an analysis done around what, like, you know, you asked the police, hey, I cut 50K, like, can they find
You know
it,
something?
you know?
You know, exactly, I had to give them a starting point.
Yeah.
I had to give everyone a starting point. You know, and it's, to be quite honest with you, it's just based on the size of their budgets, and I asked them, again, to do their best, and they did, and again, as a result, it's a very small increase over last year, but the department's proposed is 1.4%, and what I'm coming in is at 0.8%.
Yeah.
You know, we have contractual obligations within those.
I
They
saw
have-
a lot of the
yeah.
contracted was 2.5% increases
Right.
at a lot of places.
Yeah,
Which
they have, and they have services that they have to provide. You know, most of the places where they're taking, and which is always the first places people cut is capital and maintenance. So we don't want to be too
Yeah.
draconian in that. You know, we tried to have everyone present a realistic number, as realistic as they could.
Okay.
Over the last couple of years, as you're well aware, we've had zero-based budgeting. No one department is bloated.
Yeah.
I mean, if you looked at this and said, can you cut a dime from here, you're stretching it. So if you go to each department and said, where can you give us, such as the police and fire, you know, giving us $50,000, it's manpower. That's about the only thing that they can cut.
Yeah.
Which, not from the phone calls, I don't want to exaggerate anything, but from what we hear anyway, scuttlebutt on the street is people just don't want their services cut. They don't want to pay higher taxes, but they don't want their services cut.
Yeah, they
want
need somebody to
their
put their house fires out.
they want their roads plowed, they want them maintained, and they want to know a ambulance is going to show up when they need to call. So, where are you going to cut? You can't. Now's the time to go to the savings account and say, this is what it was here for, and we need it.
What is the balance if we move forward with the 471,520 from the transfer from free cash to balance?
No,
Balance
it would be
remaining?
about 100,000. It would be 100,000.
It'd be 100,000 remaining in free cash.
Yeah.
So then, we're kicking the can a little bit, but
We're kicking it down the road.
yeah.
This next year, I'm baffled at where it's going to come from without the people have voted. They turned down a debt exclusion.
Yep.
And I don't see the appetite for one changing. One of the things that one of the selectmen had said, that let's go back and do another vote, maybe once they realize this is what's going to happen if it doesn't approve.
Yeah.
And that's a possibility.
Yeah.
We can't just keep going till we get the vote that we want, but giving them an opportunity to see, look guys, you've lost a police patrolman, you've lost a fireman.
Yeah.
Is this the way you want to go?
I think that's the only way we're gonna have to, like, explain this out, right? Because I think this, calling it a debt exclusion, I'm not, like, most people don't understand what a lot of these things are.
Right. We had that meeting and very few people showed
Almost
up.
nobody showed up, yeah.
What was it, 3 dozen tops?
Yeah.
And then we had the vote and it lost substantially,
Yeah.
by a substantial amount.
Last year was 214,000. This year we're starting off with the process with 471. Next year would be $1 million.
Yeah,
Year after that would be 2. So
But it was voted in.
it was
Not by
Well,
guys,
it was voted in, right?
but we lost.
Yeah.
right. So then there's consequences.
No, he's saying, I mean, I think to Peter's point is like,
This
you
is
look at,
growing. This is gonna
yeah,
double.
this is, it's gonna do, it's gonna more than double, and your $2 million is the entire police budget.
Right.
The entire police budget.
And we can cut expenses all we want, but roughly payroll and benefits are 75% of the town's budget, of the 8.9
Approximately.
million, 75%. So,
Biggest juggernaut is the school.
yeah,
And
that we,
I don't know what the latest, have you got a latest figure from them yet? Or is it still the 4 point?
It's still the 4.26 or 4.36.
Okay.
Right.
And that's a substantial decrease from what the increase they took last year. And I don't know if you remember, last year we were all sitting here and blindsided, but with the amount that they came in as. At least this year they're coming in with a little bit more reasonable number. But in my opinion, it's still too high.
We can't afford on a school budget to have an increase of over $1 million every
No.
year.
We can't.
That's unsustainable.
But it's not for us or for the finance committee to tell them, look, you have to cut so many teachers or you have to cut administrative. It's for them to decide where they're going to cut. It's only for us to say, this is the number we would like.
Agreed.
And, you can go to town meeting and try to table it, the school budget, but that's not an easy answer.
so I know that this is, this sheet is really, it's just based on the town administrator's recommendations. And from a revenue standpoint, we don't necessarily keep a finance committee running tally. But at least in my mind, like I've got it written down already, I've got that we're over. I'm back in the 470 is out of my realm of thinking, based on just using the town administrator's recommendations. I'm looking at a $411,000 deficit as we start. And I know there's nothing that you need to update for that, but that's where I see the process starting.
Nicole or Mark, would you like to add anything at this point? Okay. Is that it, Ralph? We're ready to move on? Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, that's all.
It's all that's the big news, isn't it?
Right,
I wish I had something better.
Are we ready for Bristol Beach?
I don't see them here. So we can move on to Jonathan
Okay,
Gales.
yes, please, let's do. Jonathan, how are you this evening? He's muted.
I'm sorry, Jude.
I don't know.
Sorry about that.
We just asked, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good. I've got a crazy house. That's okay.
Okay. You're up for the budget.
Nice, Doug.
For which? The AD budget.
Commission on Disability.
Okay, so for the Commission on Disability, at this point, conversations that I've had with the town administrator, we're to hold the budget at the same. It's a minimum budget for me of I think you'll have there, of the $3,000. As we all know, and I would say, frankly, the amount of work that's involved, is intensive times. There are several committees that I need to be part of and work with at times, not to mention the new library building committee and other committees as well. There are a lot of questions I get from other departments in town as to what they can or can't do. There are literally dozens of calls that I get from residents each month, just asking simple questions of where they can get a resource or find something, things like that. If they want me to look at the sidewalk, the street, et cetera, et cetera. You know, can we put a sign here for a handicapped child? There's so many things that I touch on. Working, for example, with the police department last week, had a conversation with the chief about beginning to explore with DOT, putting in some new sidewalks and ramps right across from where you are at the intersection there, as well as sound and button-based lights, so that people with not just visual impairment, but others will have buttons to press, and there'll be a sound emitted and so forth. That's going to take a lot of time and effort, as an example, in the next year. So there's a lot that I do with that, and then along with that, of course, is the $1,500 for my support person for what she provides for things that I cannot see and read and so forth. That's my budget. That's it.
John?
So if there's any questions you have, I'm happy to take them.
Just first a clarification, so on the zero-base worksheet, it says 543, but that should be 549.
Correct.
And then, so Jonathan, we've got two lines on the 549 budget. Professional and technical, $450 for seminars, and then auxiliary aids, $1,500 aid to Jonathan. Is that what we just discussed for the transfer?
No, if you're looking at next year's budget,
Yes.
you've got the $1,500 for my assistant. The $450 are for things that I need to do as to keep up my ADA, criteria, if you will. I have to be certified by the National Disability Association and so forth. Those are things that are required to have to do. So that's the $1,500 and the $450. If you have the other line item there, because I don't have it in front of me on the screen at this point to listen to, because then you don't hear it, would be the other $3,000. So it's the $3,000, the $1,500, and the $450 for the licenses.
$3,000 is under the town administrator, yes.
It's under town administrator, okay.
But, so the software that was speaking to us before, that is under the 5580, the auxiliary aids?
No, that software is my own software.
Okay,
That's my own software.
so the auxiliary aid is the,
It's a human being that
Assistant.
provides me, yes, that's correct.
so that is what we just voted on.
Right, because that was what was missing, that was what was missing from last year, or this year's budget.
Correct.
I have a question. So I'm looking at these two different, these sheets, and one of them is saying a 2.5 non-union increase, and then this other one says an 8.51 increase. Am I not reading this correctly?
There is no increase.
Wait, this is from FY25.
There has been no increase in my budget.
No, I'm looking at FY25, never mind, Jonathan.
Okay.
Mark, do you have any questions or concerns?
No, do you know why, or does anyone know why the AD coordinator, I know it happened last year, I think, was moved under town administrator?
Because we were separating him from the Commission on Disability because he was no longer, originally he was the chair, he was the member, so it made sense to have him under that.
Okay.
And now that he's not, we didn't know where was best to move him, and we moved him to the town administrator.
That makes sense, thank you.
Nicole, you are right. That is saying it's an 8.5% increase.
Yeah, I'm just confused because the numbers aren't lining up. When I'm looking at the 2025 budget voted, the number is not the same as, and I knew it was going to go up because it's saying that the potential for a 2.5 increase, but it's more than a 2.5 increase.
Yeah, you're seeing the 31, 3650 moving to the 34, 28, 24.
Ralph, this
Yeah.
is in your budget.
This one,
This is, the stipend is going from 3136 to 3428.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then to Nicole's point, on the justification zero-based budget sheet, it states again a 2.5%, when in reality it looks like it's an 8.5.
Right.
I can check that math again.
Yeah.
Just so that everyone knows, again, I don't know if there's any figures in front of me, but from, whether it's for me or for Justina, the administrative assistant, there has been virtually no increase in the past couple of years, 3 years.
We can, we could double check that because we weren't giving anybody more than 2.5%. I thought it was reflected in that, but it is showing 8.5%, so.
Thank you, Ralph. And, not to change the subject, but Finance Committee does now have a member on Zoom. Do we need to do anything, change anything?
No, we just noted in the minutes.
Everybody wave to Doug. Hi, Doug.
Hey, by the way, what number are we on?
549 right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because we don't have BP.
So can I ask this question? So if the ADA coordinator's stipend is getting a 2.5% increase supposedly, does the assistant also get a raise?
She's not actually an employee.
Thank you.
And just to clarify also, we're gonna move these two lines under to the town administrator's budget because the Commission on Disability submitted a zero-based budget, a 0 for 26. So it was just, these were already printed and I didn't want to reprint.
Okay.
But in the end, these two lines will go under Department 124.
Any questions on that?
What would you guys like to do about stipends?
I took ours out when we did our original budget.
Okay. But in general, you want to cut them all?
I mean, what is that? What is the impact of?
Yeah.
What's the total amount of stipends?
5,000.
75,000.
So, yeah,
I mean,
in total is about 78,000, so when I cut it half, it's about almost 39,000, so.
But are we going to vote a 2.5% increase here?
I didn't think anybody was making recommendations today. I thought
No,
this
okay.
was just informal.
Okay.
And then you guys meet separate to do your recommendations
Right,
like
all right.
last year.
So that 75,000, did it include like the increases to these coordinator stipends?
No, so that was based on last year's number with no increase to the stipends, so.
Okay.
Was in the adjustments to stipends that one seems to be a little different. Was that zeroed as well?
Are we referring to?
So anything named a stipend?
Right, it was, we have a list of boards and committees. We viewed for this case because as an ADA coordinator, he's outside of the stipend, so he.
So this $3,000 is not in that total 78.
Right, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you guys have anything else? All right, let's move on. Thank you.
So we'll
Thank you, Jonathan.
You're welcome.
Have a good night. Oh, no, we'll see you in a little while.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question before you guys move on?
Sure.
So, I believe that for FY25, the Commission on Disability itself had a $500 budget that we reduced to 0 for FY26. I don't know if that was reflected on the same sheet or not.
It is. FY25 on this sheet is 450.
Oh, yeah, now that you say that, that makes sense. I think we had requested 500, it got reduced to 450. So I think that's what, I think there was some confusion there. I think that $450 was the commission itself's budget for if we wanted to do trainings or, any type of community outreach, we had that money. But for this year, we were going to reduce it to zero. Because in our last meeting, we had discussed this kind of length. We didn't submit a zero-based budget worksheet because we don't have anything in the works that we intend on spending any money on. So we figured we'd zero it out for FY26 and then revisit for FY27 if, once we started planning more, if we had things in the pipeline.
So is that's not moving over to the administrator's budget?
So in the 450 and the 1500,
Are moving over?
yes.
Okay.
But yeah, I think there's some reclassification of again, further isolation of what's needed for the ADA coordinator and then the commission on disability itself. So I think we need to probably rename some of these line items so that they align properly with these conversations. Because commission on disability should be equally separate from ADA coordinator at this point.
Right, and it will be, it sounds like,
Right?
Yes.
next year, but we just didn't want to mess it up.
That 450 that I was talking about earlier is specifically for what I need to do to continue the training updates that I have to do. That is completely separate from the 450 from the commission, which, as they said, they had 450 this year and a zero in that for next year.
Okay. Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, thanks, Kev.
All right, guys, let's move on. Mr. Ferry, how are you?
Yourself?
I'm doing nice.
So this is Department 422.
Right.
422?
Biggest question that I have is just, obviously thanks for having a cheaper budget than last year, so thanks for that. Just want to verify the office manager reduction and the public works supplies reduction is not going to hinder you beyond the necessary asks at this point in time.
So the first question is a good question. I was going to follow up with Serena outside the meeting on that. I do question that number. I think that is a real number after she was settled, after that wage study.
Okay.
We just got to verify that, and she's under the clerical union anyways, so that would get solidified.
And her salary is also split with stormwater. So it's just the way it's proportioned out. You see a reduction, they're putting more to
Gotcha.
stormwater.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Great. Thank you for that.
But the 6,000 less than last year got my attention also.
Okay.
And then your second question, the biggest hit we took with that 50,000, which I don't believe I quite made, because I asked for a gold star and I didn't get it, is painting the center lines of the road. That's about almost $40,000 right there. So we're gonna not do that this year. And then the other hits are on the police detail lines.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw the biggest item was the public works supplies with the 36 grand.
With all the white light, the crosswalk stop lines, we can do that in-house. We got that machine last year to do that. But the double solid lines throughout the whole town, we'll forego that at this time.
Okay. And then the $10,000 increase for equipment repairs and maintenance, is that for a specific thing?
Historically, like tonight you just did a transfer, you
Right.
did one last year, almost the same amount. No new vehicle last year, and it doesn't look like one this year. The repairs are getting bigger. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure that 10,000 is gonna be enough. We're still maybe considering transfers.
Okay. I figured you'd have something in mind for that, so I think you know which machine's going first.
I believe the average age of our fleet is still hovering around 2005, 2006.
Okay, thank you.
What would be the cost of a new piece of equipment?
The new dump truck, with the plow and the sander, is roughly around $215,000 now.
Okay.
You knew that, right? Or you been thinking about that?
He's in the classified ads, just scrolling.
That was last year's number.
Okay. I'm sorry, Tom.
Yep.
Okay.
Long-term, I mean, obviously, we gotta get through this budget season. Long-term, as far as vehicles, we should consider at least towards a vehicle, but it doesn't have to be new.
Yeah.
Just capture a number, and, because you can't go after something used without the purse. You gotta have it.
Yeah.
You, are you guys in negotiations now?
Yeah, it's up this year, yes.
Nicole, do you have any questions?
No.
Mark?
No.
Anybody any questions for Tom on 422?
How's Main Street?
Good, almost ready to get ripped up.
Nice.
Yeah, sweep roads first.
What's your next one? Your next department?
Snow and ice.
Snow and ice, 423. That one's a fixed number, which, you guys might wanna make a note on how to handle that, because if we're not gonna have free cash, you might need to consider a real number or a separate account to support that.
Solar?
I can't do it for 50,000, that's the startup money. But yeah, you're gonna have to plan on how to pay for the snow and ice.
Well, you can't put a fixed amount because you don't know.
Right, and it
And
affects,
you could
it affects the
put a
taxes too.
starting
so,
figure, but
yeah.
doesn't mean a lot.
No, I mean, as far as like reserve or savings,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's what I meant.
Do you know
Don't spend it, earmark it not to touch because of that, until we get out of the need for the debt exclusion, until we get by that.
Yeah.
Will you knock on wood for me and tell me what the number is right now? That we're done? No?
Serena's
It's
got a pretty good number.
negative 90,000.
90? Okay.
Oh, for this year, I thought you meant a working number for planning.
No,
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 no.
for this year.
Yeah.
90 over?
Yeah, that should be a pretty solid number.
Good.
So we had budgeted 50 and we're 90 over that.
Yeah, if you look on the one-page document we discussed earlier, I did put in a contingency of $200,000 for snow and ice deficit.
Oh, I see it, yep.
And then as we get into the end of April, May, I'll turn that into a real number.
Tom, you heard him. Tom said we're done.
Right, so the only thing we might be missing is a fuel, one more fuel bill.
Tracy, do you understand so with snow and ice, if we set if we were to double that 50 to 100, you can never go under 100 then after that. It's always
Right.
gotta be 100.
Okay.
Okay, the next budget's 432, stormwater. Street cleaning, stormwater.
Thanks again.
Yeah. I need to draw your attention to a new line being created. We don't know where that's gonna land yet, because it's still working. The new MS4 compliance line, we're budgeting the 15,000. That's a good number to start with.
What is that?
That's to be in compliance with MS4 regulations for DEP.
Okay.
Which is, what
we're in the latter part of our NOI for the, you know, the discharge of our stormwater into the rivers and stuff. So there's an NOI that goes along with that, and along with that, there's policies and stuff that we have to follow.
If I may, we're more than halfway through the study, the work that Weston and Sampson is doing under the ARPA grant, which was around $45,000, to look at our whole stormwater program and bring us into MS4 compliance. We've only got a couple of years left on the notice of intent that I filed 8 years ago. So we got to make sure we're up to speed on everything. One of the things we have never done is outfall testing. Ka-ching. So in looking at a best guesstimate from the engineer who's working with us, she said her best guess. And when I met with the town administrator and the town accountant and Tom, that totals around $90,000. And she's suggesting that this be stretched out over the next couple of years. Because of our budget situation this year, we focused on 2 items, which is the stormwater management program, the booklet, it's not a booklet, it's a big notebook, and the IDDE, illicit discharge detection and elimination system. Again, another big notebook. So she said, she estimated to bring those up to speed, $15,000. So we figured we would put that in. I have since given her the both books. She gave us this estimate without looking at them. I'm hoping that number's going to get pared down. Excuse me. I'm hoping the work she's talking about is going to get pared down because she's actually going to see what we've got, which is, I feel, in pretty good shape. But at this point, we're not saying eliminate 50,000 because what we said at the meeting we had, if we don't spend it on this, what's the next thing on this item that the list that she gave us that we need to look at? There has been outfall testing, there has been mapping and things like that. There's some things she suggested that we don't really feel at this point in time we would pursue. All of our maps, quite frankly, are hand-drawn by our artists in residence, and they would like to see GIS mapping and all that. We're not ready to spend money on that because of our situation. And those maps he drew are very detailed. So the 15 is a placeholder. She's got the books. I'm waiting to hear from her. I'm hoping to say, okay, we don't need to do all that. What's the next item on the list that you, as the engineer, recommend we do? But we can't exceed 15,000 because we're not even sure we're going to get 15,000. So that's where we are with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The public works supplies reduction, again, is that the no painting?
No. That's, that line's used for other projects unforeseen during budget times, you know, basins that collapse, drain lines, or solving water issues.
Okay.
That's what that line's for, so. So that number should be a variable from year to year.
I'm guessing that street sweeping is included in stormwater?
Yes, that's contractual, the contractual disposal. 5315. And that's.
The contract went down?
Yes, yep. That goes through our Sursage.
Nicole, do you have anything?
No.
Mark?
No, thanks, I appreciate it.
Anyone, any questions on stormwater?
No?
Okay, that's the cemetery, Tom.
491, cemetery. So the contract payable mowing is, that contract is up this year. Me and Mr. Vitaco, we thought it would be wise to at least punch in a 10% increase anticipation, but if you want to hold that number and wait for the actual number, that's going up for bid later this month.
The bid starts actually in 2 days, and opening bid is April 10th.
So as far as planning, the 10% is probably gonna be spot on.
We
Can't,
hope,
you
right?
can't guarantee that.
Any questions, guys?
I remember when that was bid out 3 years ago,
Right.
he was the very low bidder, so he wasn't even anywhere near the other
Very,
two.
right.
So even at a 9% increase, it was a very reasonable bid, so I think it's a reasonable number, yes.
You were here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
The next one is, forestry.
Forestry, yes, sir.
Number is that?
294.
$6, $7.
I don't think there's gonna be any questions, Tom.
I don't think so.
Dayton Berkeley Bridge, 429.
I had one, just a question about why the bridge gets its own
That's a very good question.
section, and it's not
I
just
actually-
under
I
highways.
gotta explain that one, because I forgot and I was reminded. We share the bridge with Berkeley, and we also share the expenses with Berkeley. So isolate the expenses and for tracking purposes, that's the main reason.
Okay. I figured it was something like that. I just
Yep.
Transfer station, 435.
This is something I asked for last year, and I would love to know. We had the increase from 2 years ago. We had additional hours for the transfer station to be open more because it was generating revenue. Did we see a positive movement towards that, more usage, more revenue with those increased hours?
I have to pull a revenue report, but I can listen to that.
Both.
Both, yeah.
We
I didn't
changed the
remember
days
hours.
and the hours,
Oh,
yes.
right.
I knew the days, but I
Yes.
couldn't remember the hours.
It's just like a common thread. Like if we're looking at things like departments that are a positive revenue generator,
Right.
anything, if we give that $1 and we get $1.25 back,
So
I mean,
we changed it a little bit too, like we don't receive commercial debris and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
remodeling and whatnot, so that's gonna change a little bit. But, yes, pulling a report would be helpful. I don't think the 1-year report though would be good. It'll
Yeah.
take a few to see where it's gonna land.
I can do 3.
yeah, I'm mainly just curious with the increased hours, are we getting the return on the investment?
Tom, we stopped construction debris, was it 6 months ago?
Yes, for July, roughly around July 1st, yes,
All right, so this full year.
yes.
So through 6 months, you had spent 22. Is it possible that we might be able to get under the 59 there?
It's possible,
The Borges bill might be a month behind, so that might only be 4 months.
Okay.
right. And then the weather that was in February deters what comes in, and then springtime's usually when everyone cleans up and you'll get more debris.
Does that get affected by any of the hazardous waste days too?
No.
or- No, okay.
That's not in this this budget.
How many years? 4 years since last hazardous waste?
3 or 4 years, yes. Yep. And still, the biggest product is latex paint
Latex paint. at
that
the,
people are
place.
hanging on to that is not hazardous.
Right. Cool. Anything?
Any questions on the transfer station?
I'll ask one. Do you know what we're hoping to, the anticipated increase from the increase in the trash bags? What are we hoping that is gonna generate?
Yeah, based on the numbers provided to us by the health department, if it was a straight one-for-one increase, bag purchase, it would be $116,000 additional dollars, but I did, if I cautiously estimate 75% of that, I'll go about $85,000.
Should be our increase.
It should be,
Okay.
yeah.
We hadn't increased bags in several years, and we were long overdue. What we should have done is increase them every year, so it wasn't such a big jump.
Yeah.
But we have to make up for errors of the past.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the numbers last year.
Right.
It's crazy.
Recycling, we're not getting any
Yeah.
money for that, and that's what's drowning us.
So, as we're wrapping up, as tree warning, would it be wrong for me to ask why these leaves on a tree behind Mr. White?
Well, he's wearing short sleeves and he's looking nice and cozy.
Looks like the window's open too.
Boo.
Thanks, Tom.
And
Thank you,
I'm in Florida.
Good for you.
Thank you, Tom.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a question. Did you all get copies of the stormwater calendar that came out last year? I know you did. I've got extras in the car.
I think there's some
And
back
by the
here.
way, these cost us less this year than last year because we have a smaller calendar and the paper is different.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Reynolds, you're up, sir.
Department 145.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. And shameless plug, I took the September picture in the stormwater calendar. So if there are any specific questions at the outset, of course, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, or if you'd like me to just kind of walk narratively through the budget on a line-by-line basis, I'd be happy to do that too. So I will jump in at personnel expenses. These were all just the agreements. The modification to mine was based on the Board of Selectmen's voted recommendation for the elected officials, full-timers. And the adjustments for my staff are just based on the collective bargaining agreement. Those are our contractual obligations. Were there any questions on the personnel lines, or would you like me to jump into department expenses? All right, sounds good. So to begin with 5240, equipment repairs and maintenance. This one, truth be told, I can't justify based on past spend why we should keep this budget. That said, since this is our repairs and maintenance line, I did think that it was responsible to budget something. We are responsible for things like office printers, shredders. We've got some equipment that in the event that we need a technician to come out and look at it, it would be a lot cheaper to have it maintained than it would be to purchase new ones. But that one, for the sake of full disclosure, I can't justify based on past spend. Professional and technical. This one got modified a couple of times, so I'm not sure if you have the most current zero-based budgeting sheet, but you will notice that the lines that I had placed on mine don't all add up to the 17,735. There was a change that was on the breakdown. So the change that's on the breakdown, so I'll just run through it, is I completely removed the contingency. So if you see a $500 contingency on there, and then you see a credit card annual fee of $125, those two things had changes to them. Bless you. So the contingency was completely removed, and then the town credit card annual fee is $99.99. So that was cleaned up to be just $100. So our base payroll service is $8,500 a year. The ACA reporting and the W-2s are $650. We pay printing, stuffing, and postage of $350 for payroll. We do have a couple of employees who live in Rhode Island, so there's an additional fee for Rhode Island W-2s and state filing expenses, which is $75. The cafeteria FSA administration fee. The treasurer has always historically paid this out of the professional and technical budget, but this is really truly a benefits administration expense. This is just the annual fee that we pay for our offer FSA to our employees. The transfer station Unipay, so that is our credit card processor that we pay. They bill us approximately $40 quarterly. Since I was the one who worked with the bank to get that set up, it just made sense that I would take over administering doing the payment for it. This is an estimate, our OPEB actuarial valuation. So this is for our actuary to do our valuation on our OPEB. And every other year, we need to do a full valuation. This was our full valuation year in fiscal '25. It cost us approximately $7,500. Next year is going to be our pass-through valuation, which is considerably less expensive. It was, I believe, $3,250 in fiscal '24, the last time that we did the pass-through. So we don't know exactly what it's going to be, and I assume that there'll be some inflation just because it seems the cost of everything has gone up over the last couple of years. So I estimated that one at $4,000. That contingency of $500 did not make it into this $17,735 figure. Our town post office boxes are $300 per year. My office maintains the post office boxes. We've got 2 P.O. boxes down at the South Dayton Post Office. And our credit card annual fee, I listed $125 on here. I went back and corrected that to arrive at the $17,735. That's actually $100 per year. And then we also use Unibank Fiscal Advisory Service as our financial advisor to be our liaison to the bond market and to file our continuing disclosure every year with the bond market. And that is an annual fee of $2,500. Were there any questions on that line? This is one line that I would say is, in my opinion, uncomfortably thin for my budget. If we do end up in a budgetary position where we're able to consider add-backs, this is one that I would dearly appreciate if there is any flexibility that we could move into, because this really is a paper-thin budget of the absolute most bare bones expenses that I could include. Certification of legal fees. These are for recording instruments of taking at the Registry of Deeds. This budget will be insufficient for fiscal '26 for everything that we have to do, and I'm going to have to cafeteria style pick and choose what we record and what we don't. I'll explain. So the tax title foreclosure law in Massachusetts changed November 1st of last year. It changed dramatically, and this was a result of a Supreme Court decision in which they determined that Mass General Law was unconstitutional. Previously, when a municipality forecloses on a tax possession property for non-payment of taxes, the property becomes the total sole property of the town. We're able to sell it, and we would retain all of the revenue from it. The Supreme Court has found that to be unconstitutional and has decided that former owners who are foreclosed on are now entitled to excess equity above and beyond whatever the outstanding taxes and associated costs were at the time of foreclosure. Moreover, the legislature kind of did a victory lap because they wanted to codify the Supreme Court decision in law. And so as a budget amendment, they changed a whole host of things, ranging from the interest rate to translation requirements to how quickly a town has to make a decision whether they're going to retain a property for municipal use or whether they're going to sell it at public auction. They introduced a requirement that if a town does determine that they want to maintain it for municipal use, they're actually required to obtain an appraisal now at their own expense to determine the best and highest value. And then they're actually required to pay the additional owner what the fair market value of the property would have been above and beyond the outstanding tax debt. There were a whole host of other changes, and unfortunately the legislature still has not issued that clear of guidance on how to administer the new law. The Massachusetts Collector Treasurer Organization that I'll be talking about a little later in as we get to our travel budget has sent a legislative delegation to the legislature to ask them for clarification on how this would actually impact municipalities. They couldn't answer because they didn't know. None of them had ever worked as a tax collector or a treasurer before. And they changed a lot of things that will bring a lot of good. It will bring a lot of social good, but we just need to iron out exactly how it's going to work. And so for that reason, we did not do tax takings this year. We did tax takings last year. We did not do them this year because nobody knew exactly how to do it, and nobody wanted to accidentally be the first one to step on the landmine, so to speak. So tax takings for fiscal '24 and '25 will need to be done in fiscal '26 when DLS and DOR publish an updated IGR on how to comply with the new requirements. There is an IGR that has come out, but there's going to be supplemental training offered by the Division of Local Services at the Mass Collector Treasurer Association annual school in August of this year. So This budget is likely to be insufficient for all of the takings that we'll have to do. However, the silver lining is that Mass General Law does permit up to 3.5 fiscal years from the year in which the delinquency occurred to record the taking. So we do have some time to figure things out, and hopefully we are in a better budgetary position. You know, we can't speculate whether there'll be a debt exclusion or what there'll be, but we do have time to go back. But this is something that will have to be addressed at some point in order to perfect the liens on those outstanding property taxes as they start to advance towards that 3.5-year fiscal year period.
Just a question.
Yeah.
How many properties are we talking about right now?
Presently, we have, I believe, approximately 60. Yes, we've got about 1.2 million in total outstanding delinquent taxes.
So the way that the new law is written is basically we can, for those 60 properties, we can collect the 1.2 plus basically the fees that we would need to sell the properties.
Yes.
And then
Yep.
above and beyond that, it's given back to the estate or the people that are delinquent.
Yes, exactly. It's given back to the former owner.
The former owner.
Yep.
I mean, an additional 1.2 and revenue would be a wonderful thing to have.
Unfortunately, a lot of these properties are landlocked swamps no one would ever want or buy with astronomical balances because they are junk.
Okay.
And unfortunately, a lot of those people have just, it's cheaper to walk away, and they're not worth what they owe for some of these.
Okay.
So someday there might be a playground there, but other than that, but yes, in theory, yes, we will be able to eventually recoup some of that money.
So basically, you're saying with the 5,500, you're going to try to figure out which ones are worth going through the process with.
So what this is this is money to record the instrument of taking. So what that means is that when I do a taking, that has to be recorded at the registry. And so there's a charge of $106 per parcel that you record. And then additionally, there is an advertisement charge. You're required to take out a newspaper ad. You need to advertise in the Gazette. Eventually, if people pay it off, you do get that money back, because what happens is, let's just make it easy. Let's say that you have 10 properties and the newspaper ad cost you $1,000. What happens is that $1,000 breaks up and it would add $100 to the balance of each tax title account. So eventually, if people pay it back, you do get it back.
Right.
But if they don't, then obviously the town is just spending that money. The postage meter, 5326. We were at 45% spend with a $4,000 budget. So what happens is this balance does include our postage that we send as a department, but it also does ebb and flow based on the usages of other departments. The reason for that is that we use a Pitney Bowes machine that is funded off of a line of credit. And then what happens is I will advance funds onto the line of credit as the balance gets low. And then periodically, I will give Serena a report that will show which departments used what, and then she can adjust it on the back. Our office supplies, I did cut, to be honest. This is one of those numbers that I cut just for the sake of hitting the -2.5. As you can see, we were at approximately, I believe, 70% spend on this one. So this one, we are using it. That said, there are some supplies that we're really well provisioned on. You know, I will probably not need to buy staples next year. But at the same time, we are heavily utilizing it. I have a very paper-heavy office for record keeping. We just had our audit last week, and we keep a lot of paper backups, a lot of paper files, and we also are responsible for maintaining the personnel files for all the town employees, and that ends up leading to folders, binder clips, things like that. We also have toner and for the printers that we maintain as well. And were there any questions on any so far? Or would you like me to keep continuing?
Keep going.
So I'm feeling clairvoyant, and I'm willing to bet that you're curious why my travel budget increased dramatically. And the reason for that is that I take an annual trip to UMass Amherst. I'm an active member of the Mass Collector Treasurer Association, and I'm also looking forward to becoming an active member of the Bristol County Collector Treasurer Association. And what I mean by that is that the Bristol County Collector Treasurer Association only allows you to volunteer on their executive committee once you've attained an accreditation as a certified Mass Municipal Treasurer or Collector. Fortunately, I am eligible to test this year, which is why I increased the budget for this. So I take an annual trip to UMass Amherst, which is a week-long, 3 full classroom days, really, intensive schooling, where I've completed the 3rd year of the program. So it's a 3-year educational program, at which point you're eligible to take the test. I was not eligible to take the test this past year for the reason being that they also require you to have been in office for 3 full consecutive years. There's an experience component that you have to have been in office serving for 3 consecutive years. So since the test was is in August and my first term began in April, I wasn't eligible to test yet. I had missed by a handful of months, so I'll be eligible to test this year. Normally, I come home on Thursday afternoons after the final day of classes. However, the certification test is held on Friday mornings, so I'll need to stay in the hotel the extra day. This also includes, we park at the UMass Amherst parking garage where there's parking fees and so forth. So this includes both the school cost, the hotel, but also the mileage and the parking fees. This, I believe, also contains, Serena, does this contain the travel stipend? So the treasurer is also historically for other necessary travel to banks and so forth. The treasurer's office has historically gotten a $600 a year travel budget, which is broken between the travel line from the treasurer and the travel line from the collector. So that's baked in there as well.
The payroll line, the travel line.
Yes.
You drive to Whitman once a week.
Oh, yes, so that I do not, yes.
I know you don't charge, and thank you for that.
Nope.
But my question is, how many paychecks are you picking up?
Truthfully, not many.
So can we make it mandatory that everybody have direct deposit, or is that not?
Please.
Okay.
Yes.
You certainly can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You certainly can.
to
I would think so in the contract, correct? So when you say not many, 2, 3, 5?
It's approximately 5.
Okay.
Yep, and then the only times it changes, the only time that I get a significant amount is we do have some, detail officers. Sometimes they like a paper check. They don't,
Okay.
But yes, there's not many, and there are also the most mystifying one to me are the people who choose to get direct deposit but want a paper check stub. That to me is one of the more bizarre ones. But
Okay.
there are more of them than you would think there would be.
Thank you.
No problem. Dues and subscriptions is just our annual membership for Mass Collector Treasurer Association, and then the annual fee for the school conference. So it's just there's just a couple of annual fees that we have to pay. One is my ticket in, and then the other one is our membership membership dues. Before I move on to 146, was there any questions on 145?
Congratulations on your pending certification.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. The personnel expenses for 146 are very much just a repeat of 145. They were based on the 2.5% determined by the Board of Selectmen and the collective bargaining agreement adjustments. And then once again, the equipment maintenance and repairs, I dropped this 50% because we haven't been using it. But I would rather be in a have and not need than need and not have with our ability to maintain the equipment. If the board and the FinCom are of the opinion that we could eliminate this and just rely on the $200 in the 145 budget, I'd feel better with a little bit of contingency, but I obviously would understand that and be amenable to it. Rentals and leases. So this one is a little bit of a moving target. The reason I say that is that my office pays for the Pitney Bowes machine. We have a Pitney Bowes machine that is leased in the copy room. And our lease actually expires in January of 2026 because it's not IMI compliant. The post office actually determined that the non-IMI compliant machines were supposed to have left service about 6 months ago, However, given the number of machines that are currently under leases with different institutions, they created an exception that allow anybody who has a currently leased machine to use that machine until the expiration of the lease. I worked with Pitney Bowes to try to get some projections on what they would cost. They weren't able to provide me anything unless I wanted to sign a new lease immediately. They said that they can't forecast what they expect the leases to be that far in the future. But approximately 9 months or so from now, we will probably have some sort of cost associated with it. I'm comfortable with only increasing it by $800 for the reason being that it will really just be the last 5 months of the year. So even if it were $1,000 more expensive, which I don't think it would be, because that would represent about a 30% increase over the previous lease. I think that's probably higher than realistic. But even if it were, the fact that we really only have a handful of months left until the end of the fiscal year, then we can right-size the budget based on whatever it needs to be for the machine. I felt comfortable with the $4,000. Professional and technical. This one I cut down because we've, for the most part, utilized the treasurer collector professional and technical line for our office. However, with the changes to the tax title law, I didn't feel comfortable taking all of it out completely for the reason being that I believe there will be some collector exclusive workshops that I might have to attend. I believe that with the changing to the tax title law, I'll give you an example on the way the tax title has changed, is the interest rate for outstanding property taxes is 14%. The interest rate for outstanding tax title is 16%. They just reduced the tax title interest rate to 8%. Of course, our accounting software is not set up to change that interest rate. And so the Mass Collector Treasurer Association asked the legislative delegation, does that 8% apply to all tax title accounts currently existent or only to new ones created after the effective date of the new law? The reply was, we have no idea. So currently, DLS has issued guidance saying that their guidance is that they interpret that as only applying to new tax titles that begin after the effective date. And so any currently existing tax title accounts, regardless if they have new balances, they're called subsequent certifications to tax title, which basically means you're in tax title, you didn't pay your current taxes, so they get scooped out of the current taxes bucket and they get put in the tax title bucket. So those will retain the old interest rate still for reasons known apparently to no one. So suffice to say, I hope that there's going to be some educational opportunities to learn more about this, because the penalties for noncompliance, once they determine what actually constitutes noncompliance, can be very severe. So I just want to make sure that we're ahead of the curve, and I thought having something in there to equip us with the ability to learn the things that we need to do, I thought would be good.
That's $1,000.
Yes, yep, exactly. For tax bills, so this one, we had $11,130.86 in spend through January 23rd. We did receive a notice from our billing company, PKS Associates, in December, stating that prices are expected to increase next year due to increases in postage and labor costs. So, in my opinion, this line represents one of the most important ones in the entire town budget because it allows us to collect the taxes that we all need. After some informal conversations, they expect that it will really be somewhere between $16,500, $16,750 is what they actually anticipate we're likely to need. So I had made this figure prior to that, but since we really don't know yet exactly what that is, and moreover, there's just been introduced with that new law, there is now a translation notice requirement for demand bills. Not for your property tax bill, again, for reasons known to no one, but for the demand bill, there's now a translation notice requirement that did not exist yet, or at least was not known to exist to the best of my knowledge at the time that these notices of cost increases went out. So I do think that $16,005 figure that they verbally quoted me might end up having some extra printing and stuffing cost associated with it. So I do think the $17,500 is a fairly reasonable number. It wouldn't leave me worried about my ability to collect taxes, but I think it'll be just on the right side of thin, is my opinion. The office supply budget, we took to 750, which does represent a decrease, but it's kind of intended, honestly, to buttress our spend on the treasurer side. We don't always we don't do like a 50-50 split, really. I'd rather keep it to the side and not need it unless I need it. But where we have been utilizing, and I do expect that we will, based on our spend, probably utilize everything that is in that office supply budget on the treasurer line. I have every confidence that we will end up meeting that by the end of the fiscal year, just based on our spend trend. Travel, I included an additional $150 over in this line, just in case there was any travel that I needed to do that was specifically for the collector side of the house. And then our dues and subscriptions is, I just put $100 in there for the Bristol County Collectors and Treasurers Association, since if I'm fortunate enough to pass my certification exam, I'll be eligible to serve on their executive board, which would put me in contact with a lot of people that will be advantageous to know, exchange best practices, gives us a little bit of more influence, frankly, with our delegation as we try to advocate for changes, streamline, and just helping to incorporate our feedback from the ground floor into the way that the legislature crafts the overall policy and the way they enforce it. I felt it's $100 well spent.
Nice job.
Thank you very much. Yeah, please.
I had a quick question. Your rental and leases, are you guys sticking with Pitney Bowes? Any thought of going to another, looking at somewhere else? There's others like Quadient and...
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to explore all options. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, excellent. I will be giving you a ring to talk about it. All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Oh, please.
And this doesn't specifically pertain to your departments, but would it make sense if we used our postage, our office supplies, and our repairs and on equipment as a town aggregated rather than by each department? You guys are mostly in the town hall. Wouldn't it make sense if we, serviced all of the departments off of one budget to meet their postage needs, their supply needs, their rentals and repairs needs? Maybe one department has a piece of equipment that they're not using that could be moved over just as a cost-saving manner, or do you think that would increase the cost of doing business?
My opinion as a full-time employee is that there's a lot of potential to that idea. What I would point to as examples of how that might play out would be the data processing budget, right? Rather than have all the technology needs and have every individual department in a silo determining what IT infrastructure they need. The town created the 155 department for data processing, which is good because it ensures that there'll be something that's adequately funded, but also that the bringing it under the control that I believe that's under the town administrator's budget or the Board of Selectmen's oversight. I think that brings accountability, it brings oversight, and it also will prevent duplication because, are there likely departments that have more paper clips? Paper clips will last till the end of time. Yeah, sure. So is there definitely potential to centralizing that? Yeah.
You're the one that budgets postage for everybody, and then they pay the...
Yes, exactly.
Amount back to...
Exactly. I pay for it on the line of credit, and then we do the adjustments back and forth, and then my true spend after that is, our things like we'll have some postage during open enrollment. We do a lot of correspondence, reaching out to our retirees, sending things to the state, the insurance companies, and so forth.
But each department does budget their own postage.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
But
Exactly.
It's only one machine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Exactly. The next one in my zero-based sheet is 158. Is that where we're at now?
Yep.
All right. So this one, to be honest, I chopped down dramatically because the liabilities now associated with foreclosure, the juice has become a lot less worth the squeeze, so to speak. It used to make a lot of sense to push some of your properties through. However, now also the other reason that I have pulled this way back, and I hope it ends up being for the right reasons, is that the town fortunately passed the tax title repayment agreement bylaw. And just to recap it for the edification of anybody who watches this later, the town of Dayton now has a bylaw that is among the most lenient in the state in terms of tax title payoff. The reason for this is that, we're a town, we've got a lot of elderly folks, we've got a lot of people who are having a difficult time, and also we do not want to be in the real estate business for tax title foreclosures now. Since we're now required to pay back the excess equity, it has really taken away the business motivation to move forward with some of these, which it's a callous way to put it, but it objectively does dramatically reduce the general fund revenues that we can get from the sales. So now the terms of our tax title repayment agreement bylaw allow us to, in exchange for a 10% down payment on the principal balance, you can enter into an agreement with me that one thing I like is that I don't consider myself an executive position. I do not have any real decision-making authority. So I am required by the bylaw to enter into an agreement with anybody who's qualified to redeem the tax title parcel. And what the benefit is in exchange for a 10% down payment, they are entitled to a waiver of all of their interest as long as they abide by the terms of the agreement. They get up to a 10-year repayment period, and during the term of the agreement, as long as they remain current with all their current taxes and they make their payments on time, I am prohibited by law from entering them into foreclosure. We have already redeemed 2 parcels that were under these agreements. We've brought in approximately $50,000 worth of back taxes from somebody who otherwise, just based on the interest, was so hopelessly underwater that they were fighting a fire with a squirt gun. But the having a way out did allow them to sell some property, pay off the town, make the town whole, and then still have enough of a nest egg left to start over. So it really ended up being a win-win, and otherwise, in my opinion, it prevented what otherwise would have been a really heartbreaking situation. On top of the fact that we're in a tough fiscal position, the other reason that I've cut this budget down dramatically is because I really believe that this new tax title bylaw is going to allow us to reduce our tax title balances in what I would consider the right way, the compassionate way, and the fiscally responsible way. So I feel good about cutting this one because I still think we're going to ultimately take in the same amount of money that we would have if we didn't.
Where are we at year to date? I see as of 12/31, it's about $2 grand-ish, call it.
Yes, I slammed the brakes on all of our foreclosures in October. So I have reached out to Dave Capola of Capola & Capola and told him, hold everything, put all of our cases on pause, don't do anything. And the reason for that is that now we only have, I believe it's 180 days from the finalization of a foreclosure to determine whether we want to sell it or whether we want to retain it for municipal use. If we do want to sell it, then we have to have it appraised, and then we have to buy it from the former owner. It used to be that there were 2 legal ways to sell a tax possession property, which were a public auction or a sealed bid auction at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen. That was the way that the law is set up. It's been changed now where we're required to hire a realtor, have it appraised, and list it with a realtor. That, to me, is very murky. It's very uncertain. I don't like it. I believe that it is going to create winners and losers and favoritism, because how do you, if you sell it with a realtor, if you have one offer that's $10,000 less than the other, but it's cash, how do you weigh a cash offer versus one with a contingency? Whereas a public auction really does just immediately determine the best, highest value, because the people in the room who are willing to pay for it, it's creates a very obvious winner, which is the one who's willing to pay the most money for it. But I apologize. I got myself.
Yeah, so I was asking where are you from
Oh,
a
yes, in
spend
spend. Thank
perspective?
you very much.
Yeah.
And that was the reason, is because the law changed on November 1st. And so really everything that we want to complete needed to be done before then. And so that really represents spend really through that period.
Okay.
And there will be a little bit of expense as they come back with title searches and things, because we had a couple of things that we entered that still have the title searches going on.
Yeah.
The title searches are pretty wild.
So do you think you're gonna eat to that 7,500 by the end of this fiscal, and that's why you're thinking that your expenditure for this is going to be 7,500 by the end of the fiscal?
That's what I think.
Why you're asking for this 7,500?
Yep, exactly. Because I do think that once we get clarification from the state on how to proceed with those, we will begin on some of them, because some of them are landlocked swamps that we do have to foreclose on.
Okay.
Yes. The next one I have is, are we at 710 now?
919.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, okay, 909, sure. So that was done in conjunction with the town administrator's office and the town accountant's office. Just, this is really I would always love to fund OPEB with at least $35,000 in the operating budget. That's something that I'd like to do, and then I'd like to always do another 90 at the special for $125,000 a year. That's what I'd like to see. But I'd also like to see a balanced budget. And it appears that we're in a situation where we can't have both. So, like they say, the best time to plant the tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now. So I am a fan of continuing to do some investment in OPEB, but the $10,000 recommendation is really just, it's based on means.
Okay. 914, group health.
Yes, 914. So this is based off of, the town is a member of SMHG, which is the Southeast Master and Health Group. And at our last meeting, approximately, 10 days, maybe 2 weeks ago, the board did vote to allow the Commonwealth Educational Collaborative to join the group, which, based on their experience, lowered our premium a little bit. And then we also decided the SMHG has a trust fund that had a balance of approximately $13 million in it, which we voted to put $1 million of the trust fund at risk as well to buy down that premium. We were initially looking at premium increases between 12.5 and 14.5%. There was a Mass Collector Treasurer Association listserv thread on this topic going around, where I only encountered one other town with a sub 10% increase to their health insurance premiums.
Trend was 10.7% this year nationally, so 7.5 is great.
Yes, I talked to one town that was a member of Maya that went up 18.5% this year. And so by accepting the CES into the collaborative, and also by putting $1 million at trust fund at risk, we were able to buy that increase down to 8.2%. And so this budget represents just 8.2% over last year. I did bake in a little bit of contingency, because you will have open enrollments, you'll have qualifying events under the Affordable Care Act, things that allow folks to jump in and out. People get divorced, they lose other coverage, they get married, they have a baby, a single plan becomes a family plan. Those sorts of things do happen. And so we included a contingency that, based off last year, I believe was roughly equal to like 4.5 family plans, just that allows some ebb and flow of new employees get hired, somebody that didn't have health insurance leaves, somebody else gets hired, does pick it up, that sort of thing. So there is some contingency in there, ended up being about 4-ish family plans worth.
Great.
915.
Oh,
Go ahead.
have we ever gone out to bid for our health insurance to see if our experience is actually better than the group? Are we a small group that has a lousy experience and we're being helped by being in the collaborative? Or would we have better utilization on our own? And have we ever gotten a quote to see where we stand on that?
We're in a captive. Yeah, we're in a, that's that captive that he was just referring to. Municipalities, from a health insurance perspective, are kind of a nightmare. So, candidly, not even knowing the census data, getting a 7.5 is great from where they're at right now. And I can't imagine if they were individually looked at through even level funding or a PEO or something interesting like that, that it would move the needle very much. Because how many people are in the captive? How many municipalities are in there now?
I believe now we're at either 6 or 7.
Yeah, so just the scale that's going to have and the reserve fund that allows the buy down, you're not going to have that in an individual group plan. So I just can't imagine. I mean, how many do you have enrolled? Like 30 or 40 or something like that, right?
We have approximately, I believe, 60 odd.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're not even, yeah. I thought the same thing, Doug, when I looked at it last year, and I dug into it a little bit, and I don't think it's worth it.
And our experience also was comparable. Our experience was a little bit lower, but since we have such a small workforce and such a small pool of insured, it's morbid to think about it in this way, but I guess that's the nature of insurance. We would be 2 cancers in a car accident away from dramatically skewing our our experience the other way as well.
And there are instances where you can have reinsurance on a per person, and you can have reinsurance on the aggregate. And those would come into play, and what the premiums are on those, and what the premiums would be to match the benefits that we currently have. Maybe it isn't anything that's going to save us money, or maybe it is. It just depends on getting an underwriting done and utilization.
Also, another consideration as well is that the collective bargaining agreements do state that health insurance is a bargaining issue. So I would say that while I, as an official, might be perfectly amenable to exploring any options, I would say that my involvement would have to be entirely at the Board of Selectmen's prerogative. It's not my office's place to make decision about what type of health insurance you would have. But if the Board of Selectmen did determine that they wanted to explore other options, I would partner and provide as much information as I could so that the decision makers could make the right decision.
And I think are we on our 3rd year of this broker, and we're going to a new one next year? Is that the way that it's working?
We have been with Blue Cross through SMHG for at least as long as I've been here. I'm not sure exactly when the town joined SMHG, but I do know that Mary was involved with it for as long, at least as far as I know, multiple years beforehand. I don't know exactly when we joined SMHG, but I know that the town has been participating in it for quite some time.
And are we classified now as a PPO or an HMO? Or what type of insurance does the town provide for the employees?
Yes, we offer one HMO plan and one PPO plan.
And they get to choose individually?
Yes.
That's what they get to choose at open enrollment?
Yep, exactly. Which will run April 15th to May 15th. So keep an eye on your mailboxes.
You want to give us a calendar too?
I will flip it to September.
Anything else, Doug?
That's all I have at the moment.
Thank you. All right, 710, long-term debt?
Yes, so these are just our WPAT note, which is our Mass Clean Water Trust note. That is for our septic betterment program, which I will say is something that I would like to encourage the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom to look into at some point. This might not be the proper venue for it, but the town did participate in years past in the septic betterment program, where what happened was we were advanced a 0% interest loan through the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, which has now been renamed to WPAT. And so what those funds did was they allowed us to finance failed septic tanks for residents who otherwise didn't have a financing option, and then we would assess them a betterment over a 20-year term, where the payment for their betterment would be broken up across their 3rd and 4th quarter tax payments on their real estate bill. We have since exhausted all of these funds, so we no longer have the ability to offer that benefit program, and we would either have to reapply with DEP, who would meet, approve it, and then pass it to the trustees of the Clean Water Trust. That is something that I'd like to encourage the board to explore reinvigorating, and I'd be happy to help in any capacity that I can. But that note, the 6668, that's to pay our annual payment for those initial funds that we borrowed in, I believe it was 2016 that we had borrowed then. And then the police station communications that is just the principal portion of our police station note, which will terminate in 2036.
It's the same all the way to 2036 to 235.
I happen to have the schedule of payments right here.
The principal, yeah, the interest is below.
Yep, exactly. So the interest.
Gotcha.
Yes, so the interest will change, but the principal installments will all be the same at the $235,000.
Gotcha.
And then moving on to 916. Yes, Medicare contributions. This is another one that if we do have the ability to increase funding based on funds availability, I would encourage us to look into that. The reason for that is that this is our Medicare tax. This is the employer portion of the Medicare tax that we're required to pay. It's, I believe, 1.45% of our gross Medicare wages. The reason that I say that I'd like you to consider increasing this is that we were at 45% spend through 12/31. However, it seems that the trend is for overtime to increase towards the end of the fiscal year. And so as we get towards the end of the year, I believe that we might see some more overtime on the public safety side. We also had the benefit of a pretty mild winter, but there also could be extra wages for snow and ice and things like that, so forth. And the reason that I would consider increasing it is because we did add we increased by 2.06%. However, with wages going up by an average of 2.5%, there is a chance that amount could end up getting cannibalized towards the end of the next fiscal year. So it might be worth considering moving that up $1,000 or $2,000 if we do have the funds availability. But otherwise, this is just something that we'll have to monitor very closely beginning in the winter of next year, and then just communicate with the FinCom if we do need to discuss a reserve fund transfer for it. But I just wanted to put that on everybody's radar.
911, retirement.
That really feels like it should be a public safety department, doesn't it? So this is our retirement assessment to the retirement board. This number does include the discount that we get. So we pay in one lump installment in July. I didn't bring the full assessment of what it would have been, but off the top of my head, I believe it was $1,186,000. And so we do realize a discount. And so by paying it all in July, that does bring it down to the 1.16890. Yes.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I did have one more, I believe, it was 915, which is our group life insurance. And this is a fairly small one. It's just a requirement. We're required to offer a basic life insurance policy to everybody. We have shopped it around. It is very inexpensive, and there's not many people that use it. And truth be told, the coverage is not very high. It's a $4,000 policy. It's a 50-50 split. The employees and the town both pay $2.02 per month for it. It's uncommon that people pick it up, just generally because it's a fairly outdated dollar amount. But this, we're at 43% spend. I can say that we've brought some new people on. So I actually have had 2 people pick this up in the last month or so. But based on where we're at, and then based on what it costs, I think this number's fine.
Good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you all very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you all tonight.
Thank you, Paul.
And I hope you have have a wonderful rest of your day.
Dan, yeah, you're up for it.
Do you want to do BP?
So, BP is a,
Okay. Well, let's do building inspector first, and then we can jump to BP.
What number is that?
241.
Thank you.
Hello everyone. Hi Tracy, Jim Aguirre, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome. So just a couple of comments. I won't be long-winded. It's getting late. Peter, I've been here almost as long as you have. I've been to a lot of finance committee meetings. I can tell you that this budget cycle is none like I've seen. So I understand your concern about free cash. These departments did everything we could under the direction of the town administrator to meet our numbers. I think we did very well to try to hold services where they need to be to serve the public. It's going to be a difficult couple of seasons. So we may have to think a little bit outside the box to get through it. That said, along with what Chairman Karen indicated, we've had zero-based budgeting now. This is a third cycle. So all of these budgets are thin. To find the 2.5% that the administrator asked for was very difficult while trying to keep, in my department, mandated services available to the people who pay for them. And with public safety interests at hand, try to make sure that we have money in the budget to deal with problems as they arise. So it was a very difficult task.
I do have to commend you though, because from what I've seen so far, you were one of the few departments that actually cut back on your overtime.
Well, thank you.
Because that's one of the highest numbers that I see throughout this whole thing, so I commend you for that.
Thank you for noticing.
Obviously, your big reduction is the demolition, right?
That is correct.
And it's-
And that I had to do an assessment of the housing stock. And I will, in full disclosure, I do have a full set of funds for this fiscal year. And I have an encumbrance from last year for buildings that were already declared unsafe. I am going to move forward with those demolitions. So that should bring me in this department into a good place where I'm comfortable with the number I gave you. That number would be, I wouldn't be able to demolish any buildings, but what we would be able to do is secure them, fence them off if we had to, make them safe for the neighborhoods, and then we'll have to revisit the discussion about taking them down based on the fiscal climate that we're in.
How many are you taking down this year for the rest of the season?
There'll be 3.
30 more?
Yeah.
And how many do you think next year that you already have on the books?
0 at this point.
0 at this point?
Yes. That's why I was comfortable giving you the number that I did tonight. Of course, that can change with a catastrophic event. Hopefully, we won't see any.
Retirement not happening this year, it's happening next year.
Correct. So, as you knew from last year, the office manager has decided to retire. She's postponing that. And so that will carry forward into the next fiscal year. She has confirmed with me that she will retire next fiscal year. So whatever we have in this budget for this year will revert to free cash. But I do have to carry that for next year's retirement.
Nicole, do you have any questions?
No.
Mark, do you have any questions?
No, thanks.
Anybody have any questions? 241?
Okay, 192, public buildings and properties. Oh, okay, and maintenance.
So that's a Board of Selectmen budget. I do advise the Board of Selectmen for this line because it includes all public buildings. So I work collectively with the Town Administrator's Office and the 2 staff in your department to come up with numbers that we think are realistic. I will say that despite the weatherization efforts that we put forth, energy costs have risen significantly. So we didn't fully realize savings in some of those lines where we thought we would have. But that's no fault of our own. That's just the world we live in.
How many more years, I hate to say, on the library, Marshall,
They'll be gone this year.
this year?
Yes, they will.
Yes, we're hoping for a grand opening
We are saying a fall opening date. We are not giving anyone a month or a day, but the library will.
She just did. Hold her
Oh,
to
did
it.
you?
Hold
I
her
didn't
feet.
hear you. Well,
I'm the vice chair for the Friends of the Library.
Oh, okay.
So, we just met the other night and we're targeting September.
okay.
Not an exact date, but September.
I can't promise you that, but I'm
No,
gonna try.
but Mark is hopeful, so.
We're gonna try our best.
After you leave here, you better go.
No one wants it done more than I can
Yeah,
assure you
I'm
of
sure.
that. So, to answer your question directly, fall of this year, Chairman, those modulars will be reverted back to their rightful owner.
Right.
We'll no longer be leasing them.
Okay, thank you.
Where are we putting them?
No, we don't own them. Those are leased.
And then is
they're
the-
going back to New Hampshire.
Is the 5217, the energy for library, is that the expected energy spend for the new building then?
Yes,
Okay.
estimated. We are using heat pumps, energy efficient heat pumps, so there'll be no oil or gas bills there.
Cool.
But based on the square footage, those are the estimates that we come up with.
And then the reduction from the modular is basically thinking
Correct.
6 months-ish tops.
Correct.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, energy costs.
Serena, on the energy 5210,
I'm sorry?
5210,
Yes.
is that because there hadn't been any real heat-related costs in there for December?
So the 5210 also encumbrances the 5216 and 17 and 19. So you have to kind of look at all of those lines together as far as the expenditures.
Because it's broken out now?
Yes, and I had to break it out to make it easier for the end of year reporting for the fire and the library. But those National Grid bills are usually a month behind as well. I do have what's spent through the end of February, which is 60,000 in the 5210.
Just 5210 or then that's broken out?
Just the 5210. So within January and February, it went from 16,700 to 60,000. So it's definitely a timing issue with the invoices.
We'll go, weights and measures next.
Okay.
Is it possible to get TMLP to cover the other buildings for the town, even if they're not in North Dayton?
So the short answer, Mr. White, is no. The geographically, there are districts that they have, that they serve, and the town buildings on this side of town are all in National Grid's territory.
I think if that were the case, we'd all go with them.
We totally would, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
That's non-negotiable.
It's above my pay grade.
Can we charge them a transmission line tariff?
Don't go there.
Yeah,
Want to put a
let's
warrant
not.
article on?
Let us go to TMLP.
Jesus.
Any other questions on 192?
Hey, Jim, weights and measures, 244,
Sure.
pretty standard.
Yep, pretty standard. There is an increase because there is a manufacturing facility that may go online next fiscal year. So there will be some scales that will come on board. So that'll increase our contract with the state. I think you remember we were contracted with the state for this, but we do pass through these bills to the businesses. So even though this is expenditure, we typically see that money back one for one.
242, 243, and 245, electric, gas, and plumbing.
Yep. So these are all for my per diem inspectors. You'll see that we've eliminated the permitting and education line. That is paid toward the end of the fiscal year, that's why it's still being carried. I've decided to absorb that into their per diem rate. I think it's a better way to quantify it. And then there's also a modest increase with them to keep up with the market rate for per diem inspectors right now. I've assembled a great team and I don't want to lose any of them. But the reason you didn't see an increase in that line is we've had a slight reduction in permits, so that has a direct effect on inspection counts. So we're able to flatline that. I will tell you that last year's permits for new construction particularly were the lowest I've seen since I've been here. I was concerned, but we have seen an uptick this year. So my annual report this year will show an uptick in new construction. We're not at the 40 or 50 that we were years ago, but we're at a healthy 25 new construction. So that's pretty good for a town this size. I think that's manageable. So that is trending towards hopefully helping local receipts, in the future. But I think the days of us seeing $500,000 local receipts just for my department are over.
Are they breaking ground are they trying to break ground the Milk Street Council Oak area this year, or are they?
That's still in front of the planning board. We've still not seen a definitive plan, so that would still be a year away. At best, you might see it at the end of this fiscal year, but right now the only substantive project is Hunter's Hill. And they're moving at a fast pace. They want to completely build that project out in 4 years. So that's quite a few homes. So
How many Form A lots do we have left? Do you know?
there's probably 180.
180, that's
Yeah.
it?
Mm-hmm.
The inspector increase is still covered by your fees?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. I may look at the fee schedule. I'm afraid and reluctant, especially when permit counts down, to do too much with that line, but I am going to make sure that we're in line with other communities. I think we are, but if there are any changes, I'll bring them before the selectmen.
Okay, any guys all set with the action?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Crystal Plymouth, thank you for waiting.
Hi everybody, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh good. Does everybody have the budget document that was sent last week by Tracy Costa for the fiscal 26 budget?
I don't have it with me.
Oh, that's the one that
I can go over just the highlights of the budget if you'd like with the assessment number, and you can ask me any questions that you may have.
Okay.
Okay?
It doesn't seem like anybody has it. But go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so the school committee approved the fiscal 26 budget on March 5th. It was approved unanimously. We have an increase of 13.9%. That's the overall budget, which seems quite high from the past budgets that we've had. But that is due to the fact that we are going to be paying the bonds for the first year this year. We had been doing bands previously, and we went out to bond $120 million for the project this year, and the first payment will be due in fiscal 26. So that is why the increase is 13.9%. If we didn't have that in the budget would have only been a 2.1% increase. And I can go over the figures for Dayton. We have 98 Dayton students this year. That is a decrease of 12 students from last fiscal year. They make up 7.13% of the students at Bristol Plymouth. The fiscal 26 assessment to Dayton is $1,697,137, and that includes the first year bond payment. Also in the assessment figure is the minimum contribution for the 98 students based on the Chapter 70 formula. That is $1,115,214. And this is the regional transportation assessment, the capital assessment, and also the debt and interest assessment. We have been sending the debt schedules, projections, the past 4 years for the building project. I'm happy to say that everything's going really well with the building project. We're slated to open, next spring. It should be finished, and we should be starting 26-27 school year with the new building. And I can answer any questions anyone has on the budget, or on the new building, or the debt service.
You said it was you're at 98 students, and you said it was a decrease?
Yes, yeah, decrease of 12 students from last fiscal year.
Nicole, you have anything? Mark?
Does the decrease have anything to do with, there was a new member of town added, was Freetown added to BP?
So Freetown was added, but we don't have limits on any of the cities and towns. Basically, it's, they submit their applications, and the applications are scored, and they choose the students, they interview the students, and the students are selected. So there's no caps on any of the cities and towns. So it could be, an increase next year of 10 students, it could be a decrease of 5 students. I have the students, when Dayton joined the district in fiscal 15, started with 18 students, and each year it increased, and it's kind of held steady since fiscal 22. It was at 105, fiscal 23 was 103, come to 112 in fiscal 24, and then fiscal 25 is 110, and then now it's down to 98. So it kind of it fluctuates each year. And we see that with a lot of the different member communities. They kind of stay in the same range.
Thank you.
One question I had with the new structures, is that going to allow you to increase student count that could potentially increase acceptances?
So we were approved to increase to 1424, and right now we're at 1374. So we really, there's not a lot of room there to increase. When MSBA approved the project, they only approved it for a certain amount of students.
Okay, thank you.
50 more.
50 more people, yeah.
I have one more question. Do you know, does Freetown pay the cost for the MSBA project as well, that assessment?
Yes, they joined the district in July 1st of 24, and they are paying.
Thank you so much.
Do they only have one class in, or do they have a full?
They have been, the school committee approved them to have students tuitioned in. So for the last 3 years, they had 15 students per year they were allowed to tuition in. So we have right now for Freetown students, we have 79 Freetown students.
I think I have one more question. I know there was an article about the cost for the MSBA project was significantly under budget, right? I believe, but I don't understand. It gets bonded out. So how does that affect the communities? With that bond and the coming under budget.
So we originally were going to have to go out to bond 179 million. And because MSBA was giving member communities, particularly the regional technical schools, additional monies, it gave us an additional 19, almost 20 million. So now we only have to go out and bond 161 million. So from the projections that I had given all the cities and towns back starting in 22, if you look back to those projections compared to now, you'll see that there's quite a savings for the member communities, which is great for everybody.
Thank you.
just to put that savings in relation to what we're looking at, the current, our current obligation is approximately $511,000, but we were originally projecting fiscal year '26 for $660. So it's substantial. So, but it's still a substantial hit to our budget overall.
If anybody wants to come over and take a tour of the school, you're welcome to. You can set that up through the superintendent's office. We're doing tours, and it's just amazing to see. It's going to be a beautiful school.
I just want to say, BP, they've been, as soon as I call them up to give them numbers and projections, they've been spot on, and they've been very, very helpful. What I wound up voting on March 5th was the numbers that very, very close to what Nadine gave me a few months ago. So it's made my projections a lot easier. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Nadine.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Great, I think we're done, right? All right, well, thank you very much. Thanks for waiting.
All right.
Thank
No
you.
problem. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Our selectmen's budget, 122.
Sure, I'll go to the party.
We're gonna put you through the ringer.
Well, I'm the last one,
Just because he had to drop off about the stipend stuff, Kevin Smith texted me. He said, go ahead and completely remove his stipend for the moderator position. He doesn't care. So if we need to do that, yeah, just throwing it out there as a...
Can you reply to Kevin and tell him to email me, please?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Just so you do, the numbers are a little out of order, so I'm going to do 122 and 124 together because it's pretty simple. Board of Selectmen. As you saw, we're going by going on the departmental budget. We level funded the salaries for the chairman and the members. What we did see is what you will notice is the administrative assistant is 2.5%, but for the BOS assistant, you'll see this in both the selectman and town administrator. There was a big jump, and that was over last year, only because that assistant was offered a position in another town, so we kind of stepped up to increase the salary. So that's why you see it, and I'm very happy that we did. So
It's well worth every penny.
well worth. We've made reductions in everything from the equipment, professional, technical, communications, and travel. So if any of those you need any further explanation, I'll be happy to provide that for you. Again, when we look at the town administrator, again, that's contractual. Hopefully I zeroed out interim town administrator. Hopefully you won't need one of those for a couple of years. So there we have the, next up is the ADA coordinator, which we had a brief discussion. We're going to double check that number, why that's a little higher than we had thought. Just to go back, overtime, we're keeping the overtime in the Board of Selectmen, and we reduced it at the town administrator. The only people who are getting overtime there would be the administrative assistant and the BOS assistant. So it's they had significant overtime last year due to the change in personnel with the town administrator. So we don't anticipate that being used very much. Again, as we looked at it, again, the benefits of contractual and professional, technical, and we've sort of kept that as close as we can to last year's budget. If I go to any questions?
The
Yes,
JGPR, I know we've got that in
yeah,
police and fire too. That is just Board of Selectmen or?
that's just the Board of Selectmen. The police and fire pay their own with that one. I'm gonna go, next, 151, Town Council. We decreased that. If you see the number on that, as you remember, a few years ago, we had some issues where we had to really use town council. We're trending downwards. We don't anticipate any big issues. So last year was 55,000, so we felt comfortable to dropping it to 50,000.
We anticipating more suits.
No.
I feel like every time we meet, it was, oh, we got another one this week. Like,
Yeah.
For a little while there, it was, that's a bit much. Yeah.
No, we're not anticipating, hopefully not, Is the next one, do we have 155 with data processing? Okay, a lot of, with the data processing, we try to, the networking equipment, we did have to increase that slightly. The assessor's fee, the assessor's $13,000, we put that in because that's the real estate research and the consultants that they use. Again, there's the Vadar, which that's our subscription fee that we use for the treasurer's office, and everything has been building permitting software. We have an increase in that because we're hoping to it'd be beneficial to expand the permitting software, and then there's also increased costs with that.
Why we didn't have anything budgeted for 25 for that.
No.
So we went from 6 and 23 to 7 and 24.
Yeah,
to nothing last year.
I think the reason for that was we tried to put it in different departments, and now we focused it into the town administrator to.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've been slowly adding departments to it.
Okay.
And I think $1,000 a pop, right, or 5,000? What was it?
I think it's been a pop.
1,000, yeah. And again, you see, we didn't have, the prime time software, which we didn't have in 25, but we're taking it on. So that's pretty much data and data processing. Town reports, yeah, we're looking to, we produce a lot of, we print a lot of town reports that just don't get used, people don't take them, so we're gonna we get to more right-size that number. So, and then if anybody requests it, we could give them a digital copy.
Yep.
So are we truly at a 0% spend for that?
It just hasn't come up yet. It's more of an end of the year thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Like May-ish.
In tuition?
Yeah, tuition is a contractual obligation. We had it for, we had in the past the $9,000 was for three, we covered three employees, but we reviewed it and we anticipate only two, so that's why we cut it down to 3,000. So from 9 to 6.
Another end of year thing.
It's as they go for tuition.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they have to pass the class and then we reimburse.
Anybody in classes now?
I don't think so.
Think
No,
so.
no, not that. Not now. No.
$945 liability insurance.
945 liability insurance, and that's, we talked to our broker, and it looks like that, they anticipate a 2.5% increase on those insurances we have.
Liability is actually under
945.
the 5741.
Hold on.
What is it? I didn't hear.
Is it underwater?
Is it underwater?
Oh, it's where like barely.
So the budgeted for the proposed amount is lower than the current year premium?
Propose expenditure 66.
66,
Yeah.
50.
Give me one sec.
Right, it's under the 166,640, you're saying? So we think that the 2.4% should be off the,
So we have another meeting with our insurance carrier in about 2-3 weeks. We'll just
That
Check that.
166,
So we
that
can-
might just be reclassed into the wrong line when we paid that invoice. Because right now they have 4,700 available in that fund.
Maybe that's workers' comp or something?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any further questions?
Can
Nicole?
we just go back to the 113 and 114 was missed?
113 and 114? Moderator.
So, we level funded the, and that, again, that's a stipend for the moderator, so we, whatever direction we get is what we'll get on that one.
yeah, Kevin said he'd email you.
Okay, perfect.
So we can get rid of that.
So he's gonna reduce it to zeros, what,
Correct.
for the moderator?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And the town meeting, we had we had a conversation with the town clerk, and this is what we had estimated the cost to be. Giving an annual town meeting, special town meeting, and 8 employees per meeting, and one off-duty police officer per meeting.
Silly question.
Go ahead, sir.
If we're not gonna have any free cash, why would we have a fall meeting?
Right.
The lease payments.
What?
Lease payments?
We used to do it annual.
So I looked at the chart and we don't, okay, so for this annual, because we're using 470,000, the remaining 100,000 doesn't pay the leases. So I need free cash to be recertified and then a special to reserve the money for the leases that will be due the following year. I can send you the lease schedule sheet that I have.
Why can't we just vote the leases, at annual?
We don't have
We
the,
don't have the cash.
yeah, we don't have the money this year to do that.
Yeah, because the amount of money we spend on the town meeting itself.
Can we do it virtually?
Yeah.
Can we get on
Well, they
a
made
Zoom
that,
meeting?
right, the legislature is looking into that, so that should be. We'll just say we have bird flu and we have to do it virtually.
That's right, exactly.
Hey, Nicole, do you have any other concerns?
No.
Mark, you?
No, thank you.
So when are we gonna discuss the stipend situation
Well, when you guys meet, you'll discuss it, and then we'll do the same when we meet. Come up with your recommendation.
Any other questions? Doug, anything?
Nope.
Now that it's dark?
Looks like he's in a closet.
Watch out for the alligators, eh? Thank you.
I'm in the car hiding from my granddaughter.
They're done that.
Is there a motion to adjourn then?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
I want to.
All in favor?
Aye.